So I got shot with a gun recently, and shortly after that happened, I thought to myself, what can be learned from this experience? And that led me to think about an old African saying. Now, before we get to the educational part of this video, let me tell you exactly what happened. So, I was out and about for exercise, and on my walk home, because I don't go to a gym. I walk. I don't feel like paying a gym bill. But anyway, so was out for a walk, and on my way home, I started hearing uh, just rapid gunfire. I'm not sure if I heard that first or got hit first. I mean, the sound travels slower than the hit, right? I don't know. Either way, I don't know the science behind that, but I'm pretty sure bullets go faster than. No, then it would break the sound barrier, right? I don't know. Point is, I heard gunshots, and then suddenly I felt a hit to my rib cage and my neck, my carotid artery specifically. Um, and that hurt a lot. Um, and so I looked behind me, and yeah, they didn't even have the decency to come at me from the front. I looked behind me, and I see some person laughing, and then they just drive off. So I was in a drive-by shooting. So isn't that something? Well, this is America after all. That's where I live. Um, and yeah, it's sad state of affairs. But anyway, so there was a number of thoughts that went through my mind. Obviously, I was pretty mad at the person who shot me, for one. But what I also thought shortly after was, well, how could this been prevented? I mean, yes, you could say, oh, you shouldn't have gone outside. It's not good to touch grass or some stupid thing like that. But no, I'm not going to live in fear of going outside. That's ridiculous. So what could have possibly prevented this? Um, well, my mind went to a phrase I've heard multiple times before, uh, which is a supposedly African saying, and I say supposedly for a reason. We'll get back to that. Is it takes a village to raise a child. Had we in America not be so individualistic and actually be more collective community like what you find in Africa, maybe these young men would have been raised better, to be more respectful and not think it's fun to shoot people. Yeah, they shot me for fun. Not well, I don't know their specific motives, but I doubt they knew my politics. So it wasn't like a political thing. No, it was just I'm not important enough for that. No, these people were obviously just having fun shooting people. In fact, an onlooker caught their license plate, and she told me, yeah, those people shot me before too. So it's not just me getting shot. Um, man, all right, where was I? I'm losing track of my thought. Just okay. So yeah, they after they shot me, I thought of if these people were raised better, like in that old African saying, then this probably would have been prevented. Now you might be wondering, because I should before I go on to explain that, just a little P.S. sort of note. Because if someone I know asked me, "Oh, what was the race of these people?" Not that it matters, but I saw them for a brief moment. But as far as I can tell, I don't know, either white or Latino. They weren't black, so I didn't start thinking about Africa because of race. I think about Africa because I constantly talk about Africa. So let's keep that in mind. Another thing I need to mention, I almost forgot to say this, and it's kind of important. Some of you are probably wondering, how am I not dead? Well, because it was some kind of non-lethal bullet, probably a BB gun if I had to guess. So that's why I'm not dead from those bullets that hit me. And hopefully I will never get shot with a real gun. But again, this is America, so who knows? Anyway, so when I thought of this old African saying, "It takes a village to raise a child," um, it dawned on me that I couldn't remember like what specific African ethnic group came up with that phrase. So I looked it up, as I do, because I research, and there was some sites saying that it was either from the Yoruba or the Igbo who created that phrase, but there was also some sites saying that the origins of "it takes a village to raise a child" is controversial and might not even be African for as far as anyone knows. Um, so that was a little annoying to me because I like specifics, and well, it led me down a sort of rabbit hole sort of thing. Not that deep of a rabbit hole, but I was like, well, even if even if that turned out to not be an African phrase, it still reflects African reality, because there's a lot of African people who live communally in that vein. In fact, there was another Yoruba uh, quote that I found on uh, MIT's website, saying something to the extent of one tree does not make a forest. Okay, so even if that one particular communal phrase is controversial, there are other communal things in Africa's repertoire. Um, and so, and one that I was reminded of while doing research was Ubuntu. Ubuntu, right? Yeah. Sorry, I'm not always great with pronunciation, but I believe it's pronounced Ubuntu. And so that's what I'm going to uh, tell you about today. Okay, so the following can be found on the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, a peer-reviewed academic resource. So, it says, Hunu, or Ubuntu, in the traditional thought of Southern Africa. The term Ubuntu, Botho, Hunu, is a Zulu, Osa, and Ndebele Sesotho Shona word referring to the moral attribute of a person who is known in the Bantu languages as Munu. Among the Shona of Zimbabwe, Umuntu. Among the Ndebele of Zimbabwe and the Zulu Osa of South Africa, and Mutu among the Tswana of Botswana, and Omundu among the Herero of Namibia, to name just a few of the Bantu tribal groupings. Though the term has a wider linguistic rendering in almost all the Bantu languages of southern Africa, it has gained a lot of philosophical attention in Zimbabwe and South Africa, especially in the early 21st century, for the simple reason that both Zimbabwe and South Africa needed a homegrown philosophies to move forward following political disturbances that had been caused by the Liberation War and apartheid, respectively. Philosophically, the term Ubuntu emphasizes the importance of a group or community, and it finds its clear expression in the Nguni Ndebele phrase Umuntu Ngu Muntu Nga Bantu, which, when translated to Shona, means Munu Munu Mowanu. A person is a person through other persons. This article critically reflects on Hunu Ubuntu as a traditional and or indigenous philosophy by focusing particularly on its distinctive features, its components, and how it is deployed in the public sphere. So, let's now read the introduction. The subject of Hunu Ubuntu has generated considerable debate within the public and private intellectual discussions, especially in South Africa and Zimbabwe, where the major focus has been on whether or not Hunu Ubuntu can compete with other philosophical worldviews, as well as whether or not Hunu Ubuntu can solve the social political challenges facing the two countries. Hunu Ubuntu is also a key theme in African philosophy, as it places an imperative on the importance of group or communal existence, as opposed to the West's emphasis on individualism and individual human rights. Thus, Hunu Ubuntu, as an aspect of African philosophy, prides in the idea that the benefits and burdens of the community must be shared in such a way that no one is prejudiced, but that everything is done to put the interests of the community ahead of the interests of the individual. To this end, the traditional philosophy meaning of the term Ubuntu, Boto, Hunu, is sought, and its importance in the academy is highlighted and explained. The article also looks at how the concept is deployed in the public sphere. It provides an elaborate analysis of the qualities, features of Hunu Ubuntu as exemplified by John S. Pobe's expression cognatus ergo sum, which means I am related by blood, therefore I exist. Finally, the article outlines and thoroughly explains the components cognate to Hunu Ubuntu as an aspect of ethno-philosophy, namely Hunu Ubuntu metaphysics, Hunu Ubuntu ethics, and Hunu Ubuntu epistemology. Before we continue with our reading of Ubuntu, I want to remind viewers that I have a Patreon, so if you can donate money, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you can't donate money, well, clicking the like button is free, as well as commenting. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing as well. Some of the qualities of Ubuntu include, but are not limited to, humanness, gentleness, hospitality, empathy or taking trouble for others, deep kindness, friendliness, generosity, vulnerability, toughness, and compassion. Okay, so now we're going to go to the part of the article that talks about the deployment of Ubuntu in the public sphere. I'm not going to read the whole article for you. You can check out the rest for yourself, but I think this is an important part to see how Ubuntu has actually been used in modern times. So, who knew Ubuntu has dominated the public discourse, especially in Zimbabwe and South Africa, where it has been used to deal with both political and social differences. In Zimbabwe, for instance, who knew Ubuntu has been used to bring together the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front and the Patriotic Front Zimbabwe African People's Union. After political tensions that led to the Midlands and Matabeleland disturbances of the early 1980s, which saw about 20,000 people killed by the North Korea trained 5th Brigade, the 1987 Unity Accord was done in the spirit of Ubuntu, where people had to put aside their political differences and advance the cause of the nation. The Global Political Agreement of 2008, which led to the signing of the Government of National Unity, also saw HUNU Ubuntu being deployed to deal with the political differences between ZANU-PF and the movement for democratic change formations as a result of the violent elections of June 2008. This violence had sown the seeds of fear to the generality of the Zimbabwe population, and so it took HUNU Ubuntu to remove the fear and demonstrate the spirit of I am because we are. Since we are, therefore I am. I'm going to repeat that again. I am because we are. Since we are, therefore I am. The point is that the two political parties needed each other in the interest of the development of the nation of Zimbabwe. In South Africa, Desmond Tutu, who was the chairperson of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, which was formed to investigate and deal with the apartheid atrocities in the 1990s, demonstrated in his final report that it took Ubuntu for people to confess, forgive, and forget. Now, I want to interject my own opinion here. So the confession thing, good. The forgiveness thing, also obviously good. I don't agree with the forgetting part. I don't think people should forget atrocities. I'm not entirely sure if that's what he means by forgetting, but if that's what he means, I disagree with Desmond Tutu on that front. And I'm sure there's probably many other Africans that probably disagree with Desmond Tutu's interpretation of Ubuntu, at least for that specific part. The forgiveness and confession thing, though, good. But yeah, I have my own opinions, so I felt the need to interject. Most of the other stuff we've been talking about as it pertains to Ubuntu, great. I need to interject something real quick. So, sometime after reading this, I decided to see what Nelson Mandela had to say about all this, and he is quoted as saying, "We recall our terrible past so that we can deal with it. To forgive where forgiveness is necessary without forgetting, to ensure that never again will such inhumanity tear us apart, and to move ourselves to eradicate a legacy that lurks dangerously as a threat to our democracy." And I checked, Nelson Mandela is also a believer in the concept of Ubuntu. So I will take Nelson Mandela's version of Ubuntu over Desmond Tutu's. I think that's a good call. Anyway, so let's continue. In his book, No Future Without Forgiveness, published in 1999, Tutu writes, "The single main ingredient that made the achievements of the TRC possible was a uniquely African ingredient, Ubuntu." Tutu maintains that what constrained so many to choose to forgive rather than to demand retribution, to be magnanimous and ready to forgive rather than to wreak revenge, was Ubuntu. Tutu quoted in Richardson 2008. As Onyebuchi Eze would put it, the TRC used Ubuntu as an ideology to achieve political ends. As an ideology, Ubuntu has been used as a panacea to the socio-political problems affecting the continent of Africa, especially the southern part of the continent. This means that Ubuntu as a traditional thought has not been restricted to the academy alone, but has also found its place in the public sphere, where it has been utilized to solve political conflicts and thereby bring about social political harmony. To underscore the importance of Ubuntu not only as an intellectual and public good, Gabriel Setalone remarks, thus, Ubuntu is a piece of homegrown African wisdom that the world would do well to make its own. This suggests the Southern African roots of Ubuntu as a traditional thought. I'm not done yet because sometime after recording this video, it occurred to me that I had more to say, something very important. What causes America to be so violent in the first place? I'll tell you why. It's capitalism. And no, that's not just my random opinion. I can have sources on screen verifying that I didn't just come up with that. Violence is caused by capitalism. And what do you do to solve capitalism? Well, you get rid of it. With what? Well, Africa chose socialism, specifically African socialism. African socialists include Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Julius Nyerere, and more. And those leaders of those African socialist leaders delivered their people out from under the violence of colonialism. And what got people out of the violence of apartheid? Another African socialist, one we just talked about, Nelson Mandela. And what was part of Nelson Mandela's African socialism? The traditional concept of Ubuntu. So there you go. There is a solution to the violence that we see in America. Learn from Africa. There you go. Now we just need our people to have the courage to implement it. I hope you enjoyed our exploration of the concept of Ubuntu. Frankly, I think it was good for me as well because even before I was shot, I have not been doing too well these days. So I think reading about philosophy is helpful to me, and I hope it was enriching to you as well. Okay, thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.